During the week of June 9th to 13th, General Hospital spoilers state that Jocelyn Jacks will be dealing with a problem, while Nina Reeves will be concerned about the possibility of losing Willow Corinthos forever. Therefore, let's talk about what's going to happen on General Hospital on ABC. Carly Spencer will also get romantic. As a first step, Carly will have to figure out who the real father of Sasha Corbin's child is in light of the recent commotion that has occurred in the courtroom. Carly will be left with conflicting emotions as a result of this, and Jason Morgan will be put in the hot seat. Part of Carly will appreciate what Jason tried to accomplish with the false baby daddy act, but another part of her should be outraged about him hiding secrets from her. Of course, the goal will be ensuring Sasha and the baby are okay after she goes into delivery. As a result of the sad death of her first child, Liam Corbin, Sasha will be filled with terror of the worst possible outcomes. There is a good probability that Sasha's second kid will survive and ultimately thrive, despite the fact that she will be concerned about the possibility of another early labor producing a disastrous outcome. It is possible that once Sasha and Michael Corinthos go through all of this together, Sasha will become more receptive to the idea of raising the child as co-parents or even as a couple. For now, Michael and Sasha will connect over their similar baby concerns, and they may wind up owing Willow their thanks for helping them amid all the labor turmoil. As for Nina, she will experience a state of terror after Carly reveals that she is the person responsible for Drew's drugging scheme. There will be a confrontation between Carly, Nina, Drew and Rick that leads to Carly ratting Nina out. It is possible that the mother-daughter connection that Nina has been working so hard to cultivate would be destroyed if Willow receives updates on that news and believes Carly. As things begin to spin out of control, Nina will continue to worry about the possibility of losing Willow for good. Drew will also have a dilemma on his hands now that he's framed Tracy Quartermaine for what Nina did with Portia Robinson and Jacinda's help. Curtis Ashford will expect to use that frame up against Drew, and he'll want to find Jacinda as part of his strategy to neutralize Drew too. Back with Carly, she'll make time for her romance with Jack Brennan someday. Brennan has a wonderful present headed his way, so Carly will try to show him just how much he means to her. Meanwhile, Marco Rios will confide in Lucas Jones, so he may hint about things getting problematic at work. Although Marco doesn't know much, he might leak enough to make Lucas concerned that Alexis Davis is in crisis mode. Work problems could become an issue for Jocelyn and Vaughn, as well, since they'll strengthen their connection through their WSB employment. Vaughn and Jocelyn have a hard issue coming up, one that'll lead to a close moment between them. Despite Vaughn's vow to Brennan about dealing Anna Devane alone, Jocelyn may get tied up in his intentions. Once Anna and Jason Morgan band up to investigate Professor Henry Hank Dalton, Jocelyn may take action and risk secret agent exposure if she's not careful. General Hospital spoilers suggest the week of June 9th to 13th will offer some excitement, so don't miss all the mayhem that's ahead. Nina had always thought that time could heal anything, that if she simply waited long enough, if she showed enough kindness and regret, she could somehow piece together a bond with her kid. But reality was beginning to indicate otherwise. The harder Nina attempted to get close to Willow, the more strained everything became. Their interactions, once filled with cautious hope, had started to feel mechanical. Polite smiles, quick discussions, and uncomfortable silences that spoke more than words ever could. Nina was losing her daughter, and this time it felt final. Willow had given Nina a chance, maybe not out of trust, but certainly out of a wish for peace. After everything she'd been through with her illness, and the mayhem that had followed the SEC scandal, she didn't have the stamina for further emotional battle zones. She convinced herself she could let Nina in slowly, that forming a connection might be doable with enough care and time. But Nina, determined to prove herself, never completely comprehended the vulnerability of that opportunity. Her need to be involved, to intrude herself into every peaceful moment of Willow's existence, started to seem oppressive. And then there was the truth, hanging heavy in the air between them. Willow may have wanted a mother, but not at the cost of her sanity, or her family's tranquility. Nina's history with Carly, her betrayal of Drew and the SEC secret, and her relentless maneuvering were flaws in the foundation that could never truly be sealed. Willow noticed everything. Every time Nina tried to smooth things over with false affection or deliberate kindness, Willow would pull back just a little more. It wasn't out of cruelty. It was self-preservation. Nina could feel it. Every unanswered text, every rescheduled coffee date, every time Willow opted to go through something without calling her. Nina's terror grew more vivid with each passing day. She began to overcompensate, dropping by unannounced, offering aid where it wasn't wanted, pushing herself into regions Willow hadn't invited her into. She persuaded herself she was just being involved, being present. But everyone else noticed the desperation, especially Carly. Carly had been mainly silent during the early phases of Willow and Nina's attempted reconciliation. She didn't want to intervene. She had promised Willow that she wouldn't be the wedge between them, no matter how much history there was, no matter how deep the treachery ran. But silence didn't indicate apathy. Carly saw everything. How Nina hovered, how Willow recoiled, how the relationship altered from healing to pressure. And as Willow began to recede, it was Carly who gently moved back into the role she had occupied for so long. Protector, confidant, maternal figure. The bond between Carly and Willow was not born from obligation. It was won through shared hardship, mutual respect, and unshakable loyalty. Carly had been there when Willow was at her weakest, when she felt she might not survive. She stood by her, never asking for anything in return. And now, as Willow started to lock the door on Nina, she found herself reflexively going to the one woman who had never pushed too hard or expected too much. Nina noticed. The more time Willow spent with Carly, the more clearly shaken Nina grew. She confronted Willow one afternoon, voice shaking, barely covering her displeasure. She inquired why Willow was shutting her out again. She appealed for honesty. And Willow, who had tried so hard to spare Nina's feelings, eventually told her the truth. It wasn't simply about the past. It was about the present. It was about trust, and Nina hadn't earned it. Not truly. Nina left the conversation feeling like something inside her had fractured beyond repair. For the first time, she saw the reality for what it was. She wasn't creating a relationship with Willow. She was chasing a fantasy. And in doing so, she had lost the very thing she desired most, the chance to matter in her daughter's life. As Nina sank emotionally, Carly's world was moving in a new direction. The tumult of the SEC scandal was behind her, and though her relationship with Drew had quietly disintegrated under the weight of too many hidden resentments, Carly was finding a kind of serenity. She was focusing on herself again, her family, her friendships, her own healing. And somewhere in the heart of that calm, something unexpected was sprouting. Romance was not something Carly had been pursuing. Not after the grief, not after everything that had unraveled with Sunny, then Drew. But fate rarely sought permission. Someone new, or perhaps familiar, had entered into her orbit with an unexpected flair. It wasn't a huge pronouncement or a sweeping gesture. It was slow, subtle, and comfortable. It came in the shape of shared laughter, of long discussions that didn't feel heavy, of glances that stayed just a moment longer than they should. Carly was hesitant at first. She questioned every feeling, every flirtation. She had learnt not to trust readily, not to throw her heart away without caution. But even she couldn't deny the warmth returning to her life. For the first time in a long time, she was being viewed not as a mother or a businesswoman, or the woman who weathered crisis after scandal, but just as Carly. A woman who still had the potential to feel, to dream, to fall in love again. Those close to her started to notice the difference. There was a lightness about her that hadn't been there in months. A tenderness in her voice when she spoke about her day. Even Sunny, who was absorbed with his own difficulties, took note. Their relationship had settled into something like politeness, but there were still moments, fleeting but real, where old emotions returned. He knew her well enough to discern when something had shifted. He didn't inquire, but the stillness between them conveyed an unsaid understanding. Carly was moving on, and this time it was true. The dichotomy between Nina's breakdown and Carly's peaceful serenity was tough to ignore. The two women had been rivals in practically every possible way, fighting over children, over Sunny, over pride. And now, as Nina watched her connection with Willow crumble, she also had to witness Carly, her greatest opponent, rediscovering joy. It was a bitter pill to swallow. Nina found herself alone more often, rehashing every scenario she could have handled better. The letters she didn't write, the apologies that came too late, the lies she tried to justify. She sat with the weight of her decisions, the cost of her ambition, and the price of her need for control. All she had ever desired was a family, But what she failed to comprehend was that family wasn't something you could twist into existence. It was something you earned. And while Carly wasn't flaunting her happiness, it didn't need to be loud. It was clear in the way she conducted herself, in the way her children responded to her, in the way Willow went to her when things got complicated. Carly was becoming once again the center of the family's emotional gravity, not because she demanded it, but because she had quietly proven herself over time. As the days progressed, Nina tried once more to reach out to Willow. She left a message. She requested for one more talk, one more chance to say things right. But the call went unanswered. And this time Nina didn't try again. She sat in the calm of her own apartment, staring at the quietness, understanding that this was it. She had lost her daughter. Nor to death, nor to some awful twist of fate, but to herself, to her own decisions, to her own struggle to let go of control. Carly, meanwhile, felt herself standing at the edge of something new. A walk along the pier, a hand that brushed against hers, a kiss that wasn't planned yet wasn't regretted. It was the start of a new chapter. Not flawless, not without its challenges, but unmistakably real. And when she stared out at the port lights shimmering in the sea, Carly felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Nina's journey was far from ended. Redemption was still possible, but it would require more than extravagant gestures or forced family dinners. It would take humility, time, silence, and perhaps the hardest thing of all, letting go of the fantasy she had held to so closely. Willow might come back to her one day, or she might not. But anyway, Nina had to stop fighting the river and learn to sit with the truth of what was left. In Port Charles, connections are continually moving, loyalties always tested. But in this moment, two ladies stood in very different positions. One discovering love again, quietly, tentatively. The other discovering what it truly means to lose something she never really had. And somewhere in between, the rest of the community watched, wondered, and prepared for the next twist in a story that never truly ends. General Hospital spoilers from Monday, June 9th to Friday, June 13th. Lucky bids his farewell prior to departing Port Charles once again. Carly, Sonny and Jason are astonished by Michael's announcement and Tracy throws forth a challenge to Alexis. Moreover, Nina is out for blood as shockwaves tear through the courtroom at the custody hearing. Read on for that and more drama ahead. Kelly Thibault Brit General Hospital episode 14837. General Hospital airs Monday through Friday on ABC. Kelly Thibault. The Britch is back? General Hospital's Kelly Thibault returns to twists and turns. General Hospital spoilers week of June 9th. General Hospital spoilers for Monday, June 9th. Lucky bids goodbye to Lulu. Drew stoops to a new low. Christina is seized by inspiration. Cody makes a proposal to Carly. Elizabeth opens out to Lucas. As real-life newlywed Steve Burton and his wife share scenes from their magical honeymoon. Find out who's seeing whom off-screen on all soaps. General Hospital spoilers for Tuesday, June 10th. Willow keeps her ground. Laura has a nice reunion. Isaiah receives a great offer. Trina opens up to Ava. Tracy imparts words of caution. General Hospital spoilers for Wednesday, June 11th. Michael's news surprises Carly, Sonny and Jason. Trina and Kai put their minds together. Isaiah picks up on Portia's sorrow. Nina is on the warpath. Felicia takes a new mission. Text says, subscribe to Soap's General Hospital newsletter. Get breaking news alerts, daily recaps, exclusive interviews and spoilers sent straight to your inbox. https://cloud@email.soaps.com/signup. General Hospital spoilers for Thursday, June 12. Shockwaves burst across the courtroom at Michael and Willow's hearing. Elizabeth tends to a patient. Rick makes an admission. Ava issues an invitation. Alexis swallows her panic. General Hospital spoilers for Friday, June 13th. Tracy challenges Alexis. Maxie tries to play mediator. The tension between Chase and Dante increases. Anna muses about her history. Marco is taken aback. Lucky Spencer had always found it difficult to stay in one place for too long. The pull of adventure, the weight of his past, and the complicated tangle of emotions he associated with Port Charles had always driven him away. And yet every time he returned it was as if he never left. Familiar streets, familiar faces, the same emotional wounds that never fully healed. This time, however, Lucky's departure carried a heavier finality. Before leaving town again, he made a point to say his goodbyes, not rushed or haphazard as in years past, but deliberate, thoughtful, final. He stopped by Laura's house first. Their bond remained intact, no matter the years or distance, and Laura understood him better than most. There were no lectures, no guilt trips, just a quiet understanding that her son had to find his own peace in his own way. Even so, there was an unspoken sadness between them. Laura had hoped deep down that this return might be the one that kept him grounded. But Lucky knew what he needed, and he also knew that Port Charles wasn't where he'd find it. He embraced his mother tightly, told her he loved her, and promised to check in more often. A promise they both knew he might not keep. From there, Lucky made rounds that weren't about obligation but closure. Elizabeth was next. Their history was deep, complicated, and filled with both joy and heartbreak. They had shared more life than most couples ever would, even if that life had pulled them in different directions. When she saw him, her expression was bittersweet, affection laced with resignation. They didn't talk much about the past. There was no need. Instead, they focused on the present. She updated him on the boys, on work, on the rhythms of her daily life. Lucky listened intently, quietly grateful that she had found stability. Before he left, he asked her to take care of herself, and she made him promise he would do the same. It was one of the few promises he didn't hesitate to give. Meanwhile, across town, a bombshell was unfolding that no one saw coming. Michael had been sitting on a secret for days, unsure of how to handle it, knowing that once it was out, there would be no putting it back in the box. But the time had come. With Sunny, Carly, and Jason gathered in the room, he dropped the news, and the reaction was immediate and explosive. Sunny, typically composed under pressure, looked momentarily stunned. Carly's mouth fell open, her expression a mix of disbelief and instant defensiveness. And Jason, ever the stoic one, simply locked eyes with Michael, searching for context, motive, anything to explain what he'd just heard. Michael had never meant to shock them, but he also wasn't going to protect them from the truth. The revelation involved more than family drama. It had implications that could shake the foundation of everything they'd worked to rebuild. Michael's words weren't fueled by anger, but by clarity. He wasn't lashing out. He was making a decision, drawing a line, setting a new course for his future and for his family. Sunny, as always, took it personally, but Jason stepped in as the bridge, trying to de-escalate while also urging Sunny to really hear what Michael was saying. Carly, meanwhile, tried to regain control, throwing questions at Michael, demanding explanations, insisting there had to be another way. But there wasn't. Michael had made his choice, and they would all have to live with it. Not far from the chaos in Sunny's world, another power player was making moves of her own. Tracy Quartermain had never been one to sit on the sidelines, especially when she sensed opportunity. With Alexis more involved in the legal scene again, Tracy took it upon herself to issue a challenge, a public, pointed test of character and cunning. Tracy didn't doubt Alexis's intelligence, but she questioned her judgment. She questioned her loyalty. And most of all, she questioned whether Alexis still had the edge needed to truly stand her ground. The challenge wasn't a threat. It was a gauntlet. Tracy put Alexis in a position where she would have to choose between playing it safe or taking a bold legal stance that could have serious consequences. It was classic Tracy. Calculated, shrewd, and dripping with ulterior motives. Alexis, for her part, refused to be intimidated. Though shaken at first, she quickly found her footing, reminding herself that she had faced much worse and come out stronger. Still, the tension between the two women simmered, promising more fireworks as the week went on. But perhaps the most volatile drama unfolded in the courtroom. A battleground that had seen its fair share of chaos, but nothing quite like what was coming. The custody hearing had been tense from the start, but when Nina stepped into the courtroom, her entire demeanor was different. Gone was the overly conciliatory tone. Gone was the pleading. This Nina was composed but cold, calculated, and above all out for blood. She had been pushed to her limits, kept at arm's length by Willow, alienated by Sunny, undermined by Michael. The custody hearing wasn't just about visitation, it was about vindication. It was Nina's chance to assert herself, to prove that she wasn't the villain everyone had made her out to be. But as the hearing progressed, It became clear that Nina wasn't just defending herself. She was launching an attack. Shockwaves rippled through the courtroom as Nina's legal team unveiled a trove of evidence. Some of it legitimate, some of it dangerously speculative, meant to portray her in a new light while casting doubt on the other side's stability. Witnesses were called. Testimonies contradicted expectations. And by the time court adjourned for the day, the judge's expression alone told everyone just how far off script things had gone. Willow was shaken. She had hoped this would be straightforward, something clean and quiet that would let her control the pace of Nina's re-entry into their lives. But what unfolded was anything but quiet. Nina's tactics, though strategic, bordered on ruthless. Even her own attorney seemed mildly surprised by her tenacity. Nina wasn't just fighting for her place in her granddaughter's life. She was fighting for her legacy, her name, her sense of identity. Back at the Metro Court, word of the hearing traveled quickly. Gossip zipped around the bar like electricity. Some were astonished. Others were not. But all agreed Nina had formally declared war. And in doing so, she may have changed the path of her destiny irreversibly. As the week progressed, fallout rippled through every corner of Port Charles. Lucky's quiet departure stood in contrast to the emotional explosions erupting around him. Michael's bold move continued to divide the Corinthos family. Carly and Sonny argued behind closed doors, trying to figure out how to regain control of a son who no longer looked to them for guidance. Jason kept his focus on damage control, quietly keeping an eye on Michael while also making sure Sonny didn't unravel. Tracy remained as calculating as ever, pushing Alexis into increasingly difficult decisions while keeping her own hands clean. She had no intention of backing down, and Alexis knew it. Their growing feud became a game of mental chess, with neither side willing to concede a single square. Meanwhile, the legal battle between Nina and Willow escalated. Michael's support for Willow was unshakable, but the cracks in their emotional armor were beginning to show. Behind the scenes, concerns began to surface about how far Nina was ready to go. Would she risk exposing more skeletons only to win? Would she ruin connections she once pleaded to preserve? The answers weren't apparent, but the danger was. In the final moments of the week, Lucky stood on the docks, watching the water as the sun set. He heard the distant sounds of a town still turning, still breaking, still healing in the way Port Charles always does. He wasn't part of the chaos anymore, but he carried its weight with him as he boarded the boat, disappearing once again into the unknown. And back in town as the courtroom drama resumed, Nina stared straight ahead, unflinching. Whatever the cost, she had made her choice. She wasn't walking away. She was fighting, and in Port Charles fights rarely end cleanly. The door quietly opens, and she recognizes him before turning around. Spencer's presence is like a storm coming in, charged and hefty. He walks up alongside her and also looks at the photograph. It's a candid photo of a street performer in Paris, taken during a solo trip she took following one of their numerous breakups. She feels the recollection pressing in, intense and bittersweet. He says very little at first. Just stands there, hands in his pockets trying to find out where to start. When he eventually speaks, he does it with quiet humility, which surprises her. "I'm sorry. I thought I could fix everything, including Esme, Ace, and the Cassadine situation, and still hold on to you. But I understand it's not fair." She nods slowly. It's the first time she's felt he truly sees her in weeks. "I love you, Spencer," she confesses. "But I can't be your refuge if you continue to make every aspect of our lives into a battleground. I need some peace. And you have to desire it, not just claim you do." Spencer nods and reaches for her hand. She does not draw away. Not yet. Perhaps this is the turning point. Perhaps it's just another stillness before the storm. But for the first time in a long time, they're communicating in the same language. On the other side of town, in a very different environment, Ava sits on the edge of her penthouse balcony, sipping wine and watching the city light up beneath her. She's waiting. Not for phone calls or visitors. For him. Nicholas. She's been assured that he's alive. She has heard the voices. And now she can feel it in her bones. He'll eventually make his move. Her thoughts turn to Austin, the man who previously appeared like a wild card, but is now a ghost she's not sure how to feel about. His demise generated more questions than answers. Nonetheless, Her heart remains entwined in memories she can't quite untangle. Then there's Sunny, always close and deadly. He knows more than he admits. It always has. But even he seems out of sync lately, distracted by something Ava can't quite place. When the doorbell eventually rings, she does not move. She already knows it isn't the doorman or a neighbor. She moves deliberately to the door, sets down her drink and opens it. That's him. Nicholas. Alive. His skin is paler and thinner than she remembers, but his eyes remain the same. Haunted, brimming with secrets. Ava does not speak. Neither does he. They stay silent for a long time before he adds, I didn't come to fight. She narrows her eyes. So why did you come? He enters without asking for permission, and Ava does not stop him. She's too astonished to process everything. He paces for a bit, raking his hand through his hair, before returning to her. I came to explain everything. And to see whether there's anything left between us that's worth rescuing. Ava laughs, but there is no humor about it. You've disappeared. You left me for dead, Nicholas. What might be left? Even as she speaks, her voice cracks. She hates the fact that a part of her still feels something. That portion of her is still seeking answers. Still wants him. Nicholas moves closer. Let me tell you the truth. Then make a decision. The door closes behind them. Whatever happens next will not be straightforward. It is never with them. Back in Metro Court, as the night falls, more pieces of the puzzle change. Valentine sits at the bar, nursing a drink while staring blankly at his phone. He has been avoiding Anna for days, ever since his falsehoods began to press in on him. She knows. She doesn't have proof yet, but she knows. And he can feel it slipping away, the fragile trust that they worked so hard to restore. He considers texting her. Only a few words. A warning. An apology. Something. But he does not. Instead, he finishes his drink and requests another. There's a storm approaching, and he knows he might not be able to outrun it. Finn travels down the hospital hallway, looking into exam rooms and avoiding Elizabeth's floor. Their relationship, if it can be called that, is on thin ice. His relapse, instability with his father, and Violet's anxieties are all too much. And Liz? She's tired of carrying the weight of his mess. They have chatted. They have tried. But love is insufficient when trust is lost. Finn is currently distrustful of himself. Liz and Portia sit in the nurse's lounge, sipping lukewarm coffee. She's silent and pensive. Do you still love him? Portia asks. Liz does not respond right away. I do. But I'm not sure if I can keep doing this. I feel as if I am waiting for the next error. The next apology. Portia nods. You can't fix someone who doesn't want to heal. Liz glances away. Perhaps that is the truth she has been avoiding. As the night deepens in Port Charles, the lovely scene becomes increasingly turbulent. Old flames resurface. New betrayals take root. In the midst of it all, people are deciding whether to fight, forgive, or run. Nobody knows what the next morning will bring. But one thing is certain. These narratives are far from finished. And in this town, love is never free.